Capital punishment is among the oldest forms of punishment known to humankind. Nearly every civilization has employed it, starting from the depths of antiquity. As far back as the 3rd millennium BCE, ancient states like Mesopotamia, Egypt, and Greece practiced a wide variety of execution methods. A key feature of these punishments was their public nature. Executions attracted massive crowds, turning into a kind of spectacle. People viewed these acts not only as justice being served, but also as a form of captivating entertainment that reinforced fear of the law. The oldest known method of execution is stoning, also referred to as lynching. This practice dates back to primitive societies and is mentioned in ancient texts such as the Bible and the Code of Hammurabi. Stoning was a simple and accessible method of punishment. Stones were readily available, and the process required no complex tools or preparation. Often, the entire community participated in the execution, which fostered a collective sense of responsibility for maintaining order and served as a powerful deterrent to others. Stoning was typically used for severe violations of social or religious norms, such as adultery, murder, or blasphemy. In the ancient East, around the 6th century BCE, animals began to be used for executions. The condemned were sentenced to death by being torn apart by predators such as lions, tigers, panthers, or bears. These animals, often starved beforehand, became instruments of unyielding justice. This method was widespread in Asia and later adopted in ancient Rome. The use of animals in executions wasn't limited to punishing criminals. At times, the condemned were forced to fight predators as a form of public entertainment, adding an element of spectacle. In Rome, such displays served to demonstrate the emperor's power and maintain societal discipline. However, animals weren't the sole method of execution. In some cases, the condemned would endure brutal torture or be killed in a manner that became part of the public spectacle. In ancient Rome, executions became increasingly elaborate and brutal. One such method was gladiatorial combat, where convicted criminals were pitted against professional fighters. Unlike gladiators, who occasionally had the chance to win, the condemned had no weapons or hope of survival. They were destined to die in the arena, and their deaths became part of the public performance, serving to entertain the crowds. This was yet another form of punishment used to instill fear and showcase the power of the ruling authorities. Another gruesome method of execution was quartering. This practice originated in Asia but later spread to Europe. In its early form in India, oxen were used. The condemned's limbs were tied to the animals, which pulled them apart. In Greece and Rome, this method was refined by using bent trees which were suddenly released, tearing the person's body apart. Sometimes the body parts were displayed publicly after the execution to underscore the gravity of the crime and set an example for others. In ancient China, one of the most torturous execution methods emerged, known as the bamboo torture. This technique utilized living bamboo, which has the unique ability to grow up to 8 centimeters per day, to literally grow through the victim's body. The condemned was tied to the ground, and bamboo shoots were planted under their armpits, in the groin, or directly onto their chest. As the bamboo grew, it caused excruciating pain and injuries, eventually leading to death. Although this method was not widely used, it became infamous in history. It served both as a means of extracting information through torture and as a punishment for particularly dangerous criminals. Later, this method spread to other Asian countries such as Sri Lanka and Vietnam, where similar techniques were employed using other fast-growing plants instead of bamboo. The bronze bull stands as one of the most horrifying and sinister methods of torture in history, originating in ancient Greece. According to legend, it was invented in the 6th century BCE by Phalaris, the tyrant of Sicily, as a means to punish criminals and enemies. The device was a hollow bull made entirely of metal, with a chamber inside large enough to hold a person. Once the condemned was placed inside, the door was locked and a fire was lit underneath, heating the metal. The walls of the bull grew scorching hot, causing death by burning and suffocation. The most chilling aspect of this device was its design. The screams of the victim echoed within the bull, amplified to resemble the bellowing of the animal, adding an eerie and terrifying dimension to the execution. Ironically, the first victim of the bronze bull was said to be its creator, Pericles, who designed it for Phalaris. Legend has it that the tyrant tested the device on him, making the architect a victim of his own invention. In medieval Europe, a method even more gruesome emerged: the boiling cauldron. This execution involved submerging the condemned into a massive cauldron filled with boiling liquid, whether water, oil, or tar. The process was excruciatingly slow, taking hours, and the victim's suffering was unimaginable. This punishment was reserved for those accused of heinous crimes, such as witchcraft or heresy. Particularly horrifying was the fact that victims were often boiled alive, leaving their bodies almost unrecognizable. The earliest records of this practice come from 16th century England during the reign of King Henry VIII, who used it to punish poisoners. However, similar methods were documented across Europe. During this same period, the practice of burning at the stake became a widespread method of dealing with perceived threats, especially accusations of witchcraft. The rise of this method is often associated with the Spanish Inquisition. It is estimated that over 30,000 people perished in the flames of the Inquisition over 2 centuries, a death toll surpassed only by the Black Death. In 1514, a particularly cruel execution method was devised specifically for one man, György Doza, a leader of a peasant uprising in Hungary. After his rebellion was crushed, the authorities sentenced him to sit on a red-hot iron throne while a heated crown was placed on his head. His agonizing death served as a grim warning against defying authority. Fortunately, this barbaric method was used only once in history. In 1563, the Scottish maiden, a primitive guillotine, was introduced in Edinburgh. Its invention was prompted by the deterioration of the sword traditionally used for executions. The device featured a 33-kilogram blade that cleanly severed the head from the body. It quickly became a popular Saturday spectacle for locals. The Iron Maiden is perhaps one of the most infamous yet controversial instruments of torture and execution. It was a vertical metal sarcophagus lined with sharp spikes on the inside. When the victim was placed inside and the doors closed, the spikes would pierce the body, inflicting fatal but not instantaneous wounds. The design ensured a slow and agonizing death. While often associated with the Middle Ages, there is little evidence to suggest it was widely used during that time. Most references to the Iron Maiden appear only in the 18th century, leading many historians to believe it was more of a symbolic device than an actual instrument of execution. In 1857, England saw the emergence of a particularly gruesome method known as Devil's Wind. This punishment involved tying the condemned to the muzzle of a cannon and firing a cannonball through their body. The result was as horrific as it sounds, leaving a gaping hole in the victim. The electric chair was invented in 1881 by Alfred Southwick, inspired by an incident where a drunken man accidentally touched an electrical generator and died instantly. Southwick proposed it as an alternative to hanging, and by 1890 it had been used for the first time to execute William Kemmler, who had been convicted of murder. In 1921, toxicologist Alan Hamilton introduced a new method, the gas chamber. This involved killing the condemned with lethal gas in a specially designed chamber. The first to experience this method was John Jubb, a convicted murderer, whose death took over 30 minutes. The gas chamber became a widely used execution method in the United States and was later infamously adopted by the Nazis during World War II. In 1977, a more humane method was developed, the lethal injection. Invented by forensic pathologist J. Chapman, it initially caused slow and painful deaths, as victims gradually lost the ability to breathe over 5 to 18 minutes. Over time, the formula was refined, and now it acts almost instantaneously. The history of execution methods serves as a grim reminder of the lengths humanity has gone to enforce justice and instill fear. Today, these practices seem barbaric, but remembering them is crucial for appreciating the importance of compassion and humanity in the modern world. Which of these methods do you find the most terrifying? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more dark secrets from the past.